already 50 people line up waiting for Dean and Zachary. I think we should be rolling. Let's see. So there's a delay for... Yeah, we are. What's up? We're back with another live stream here. Zaki is back. He's been a very, very frequent guest here on my channel, and I really, really appreciate that. Also, we got Dean here for the first time today on this YouTube channel, which has been long overdue.
Cryptocito, Dean. Wow.
Is this my first Cryptocito? Oh my gosh. It's hard to imagine. What is wrong with you? Oh, wait,
welcome. No. Yeah, welcome. And yeah, I think today is all about Agoric as well as Inter, which is going to be an IBC-backed stablecoin running on Agoric. And we will find out a lot about this. Also, I see a lot of people here in the chat. Drop your questions. I know stablecoins is a very sensitive topic with everything that happened around UST, but drop your questions, also challenging questions if you have any concerns, and then we'll pick that up during the stream. But yeah, I think first off, I mean, Zaki, you definitely don't need any introductions, but Dean, maybe since you're the first time here, maybe share a little bit about your crypto and Cosmos journey and then how you ended up working on Agoric.
Sure. So I first started in blockchain, or well, not blockchain, in crypto back in, I would say 89 or before, where I worked on the first production smart contract. So I was one of the early cypherpunks working on mixed networks and getting RSA out to the world and all those kinds of things back in the late 80s, early 90s. And worked on smart contracts in several different venues and several different circumstances in the years since. And a lot of that, and much of that, is pre-blockchain, where smart contracts are software that enforces the terms of a contract-like arrangement between third parties. And so it's, you know, the $1 trillion market cap of, you know, Airbnbs and Ubers and Lyfts and eBays and PayPals and all those, where software is enforcing these things. And then when blockchain came along, suddenly you could do this without a trusted intermediary in the middle. And that meant you could do a lot more with smart contracts. You could enable a lot more, you know, software enabling cooperation among strangers because it carefully sets the rules of how they cooperate. And so that's been a driving vision for many, many years in many different venues. I worked in you know, again, pre-blockchain fintech, large scale early e-commerce work. Me and my founders did asynchronous promises, which many people are familiar with in JavaScript and Rust and C# and so forth. So we've been doing lots of, you know, distributed system, crypto, and large scale e-commerce systems leading up to blockchain. In 2017, there were all these disasters around security, and people knew that Mark Miller, our chief scientist, and myself had done lots of how do you secure interesting smart contracts. And so Zuko of Zcash and Foresight Institute and a few others brought Mark and others into a panel as to whether our approach to doing large-scale systems could apply to crypto and smart contracts. And the answer was a resounding yes. And out of that, we all decided to start Agoric. So that's how Agoric started. We were doing this not in Cosmos. This was just from scratch, you know, building up our model of smart contracts on a blockchain. And then we encountered Zaki. And I encountered him when he was first getting Cosmos out there and deployed. And he was just like, I don't have time for this. That sounds really interesting. I really want to talk to you, but I got to get this done. And I, of course, assumed that was.
I told you. I already heard about I already knew your work.
Yes.
It was already the basis of Cosmos.
No, you did not tell me that. Okay, so
I'm sure I told you that.
He was wonderful.
A very long conversation. But,
yes,
you know.
yes. This is a
Right.
Zcon
It was
Zero,
the basis of Cosmos. erates.org was where I was inspired. You know, Mark's, you know, Mark and Bill's and everybody's work. Right. I was very familiar with your work.
Yep.
I was like, I already figured out that your work doesn't work without like Tendermint. Right. And I got to ship Tendermint.
Right. So he was busy for a while. We kept going. Then he showed up in like January with Tony Arcieri on our couch and there. So, all right, now let's talk. So I actually didn't expect him to get back to us, but he did. And just, it was like I'd found our peeps. You know, it's like this whole model of independent sovereign services all cooperating in a loosely coupled fashion. You know, that's the architecture we've been building systems with since the 80s. And here it was appearing in the context of blockchain with just the level of underpinnings that we needed, so we could focus on our contract model and how to enable, you know, millions of programmers to do this stuff instead of just thousands. And so it was just a, you know, oh, this is where we need to be. This is great.
And what year was that when you got to
2019?
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So 2018, we were building it. We were looking at other infrastructures, you know, from building our own to Substrate to Avalanche and so forth. And they all had many things about them that were problematic. And Tendermint just didn't.
There we go. There we go. Yeah. And I think
the original plan that was like we thought of in 2016 was like, we don't know how to implement like all of CapTP in IBC because we're not smart enough. So we're going to implement like some simple token transfer thing in IBC. And then hopefully by then we'll be able to hire people who are smart enough to implement CapTP over IBC. But by the time we got to 2019 and Tendermint was done, at the time in 2016, nobody thought it would take 3 years, but you know, it is what it is. Like, you know, we knew Dean, we knew Agoric, and we were like, oh, we could just like go to the people who invented this and be like, just like do it correctly the first time.
Yep. Yeah. So we had this wonderful, at Cosmos Conversations, we had a great walkthrough of, we were already building a protocol for doing, you know, fine grain object messaging between chains, because we were using that for going from our chain to our client. And they were doing IBC. So we went through, you know, what are our requirements? What are their requirements? What are we building? What are they building? And they just really meshed. And so at that point, IBC brought Agoric on board to help, you know, as sort of half the team to help finish the design and architecture and review of IBC. And so we had a long project that was, you know, funded by the community to help finish IBC and get it out there. And so
but this is why we got an IBC. That means that you can go from token transfers to interchain accounts to whatever crazy thing to interchain security, all on the same protocol, instead of having like bespoke protocols for each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, quick disclaimer for everybody: if you listen to Dean for an hour, you will definitely, I don't know, go buy some Atom. You will research the Cosmos. You will become very, very, very passionate and enthusiastic about Cosmos. And if you hear Zaki and Dean together in this combination, I don't know what's going to come out of this. But you can see, Don Cryptonium is here. We have also Golden Ratio in the house. Don Cryptonium is also saying, guys, hit the like button. Yeah, I actually never say this. I always forget to say this, but you should hit the like button. We also get more and more people flooding in here. But Dean, you said something interesting. You said you were in crypto since '89. How was crypto back in '89? And what was the mission back then? Is that also the same mission that you're still pursuing today with Agoric to build like an open peer-to-peer ledger, or how did that evolve over the decades, I guess?
Well, so crypto largely, you know, so Agoric was originally funded actually by Zcash. Crypto has been, or at least the cypherpunk vision. First off, you know, cypherpunks write code. That's the first thing, right? So, you know, don't complain about stuff, build stuff, right? But the other is, it's always been about individual, decentralized liberty and privacy, right? So I can do what I want, communicate what I want, you know, talk with the people I want, do transactions that I want in a way that I have sovereign control of my, you know, my interactions with other people. And so that's been, you know, driving motivation for you know, PGP and, you know, and TLS broad adoption and all these kinds of things is, you know, business needs privacy, humans need privacy, personal relationships need privacy. That's just critical. Now, ironically, blockchain, with few exceptions like, you know, Zcash and Penumbra and others, don't have privacy, but we'll get there, right? We've got, you know, we have these critical, you know, evolution that is well funded by crypto of these better and better, richer and richer, more powerful zero knowledge stuff that we very much, you know, want to see develop and integrate into our stuff. But that's been one of the driving things for crypto. You know, the other is, of course, all of the, not just confidentiality, but high integrity and authenticity. I'm a very big fan of high integrity execution. That's what the Agoric platform as is all about, is being able to run nice composable, DeFi and governance and NFT and whatever Legos, plug them together and have it run with high integrity. So you don't need a, trusted intermediary in the middle in order for you to be able to cooperate with, strangers across the globe. So, but it was always, all the mixes, all the privacy, what can we build so that technology can help us, cooperate, be more private, be more free?
Yeah, you just mentioned CCAS. Did you also look into Secret Network and what they're building with their?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, the enclave execution. People have been working on enclaves for many, many years. Enclaves are hard to manage. It's got very specific limitations on programming, but it's certainly interesting. And being able to take key elements of your overall computation. I mean, part of our model and the thing that got Zucky excited about our model, I think, or one of the elements is it's all about asynchronous messaging, because what that lets you do is on the same machine, you can have two contracts working together. But if you take one of those, or machine, where, a blockchain is just a machine built out of agreement rather than out of silicon, right? So if I take a contract that's on the same machine, move it over to a different machine, a different blockchain, or, my phone or my server, whatever it is, the messaging works the same. It's just a different latency. Right? It just takes longer for messages to go back and forth and to get answers, but the architecture and the software is the same. Being able to take critical elements of that and move it all the way out into a enclave running in, a container on something like Secret Network. Well, now I can have elements of my computation that I can prove that I can't even know, but it's operating on you, the customer's behalf, right? So you could provide secrets to this part of it that will then provide, some key functionality that the rest of my smart contract running, in JavaScript on Agoric can work just fine. And we built, people built lots of systems of that flavor with hardware processors, safety processors, ledgers that are secure components. There are all these different computers that have stronger encapsulation that we then have an application that crosses multiple machines. And, the Agoric model is generally about how do we able to write applications that span multiple machines, multiple blockchains, multiple users all at once.
Yeah, and one of the big value propositions for Agoric is also JavaScript, right? And that it can do JavaScript smart contracts, but it's still running as its own Cosmos zone, as of my understanding. So can you walk us through a little bit, first of all, why this JavaScript component is a big deal, and then how Agoric is fundamentally architectured? Like, is it built on the Cosmos SDK? Does it have its own chain, or how are all these components playing out together?
I think you have a layer diagram somewhere. So I'll start at the bottom, right? It is indeed built on Cosmos SDK. We require fast finality, a good account model, and Cosmos provides that. We build in hardened JavaScript, which is JavaScript with the bad historical parts locked down. So you can't go and change array iteration to not only iterate the array, but look in my file system, grab my keys and send them to another country, right? Which you can do in JavaScript and Ruby and C# and Rust and everything else. And with our technology in JavaScript and in JavaScript only, it turns out that it's more securable than these other languages. You can lock it down so you can grab libraries that can't do that. So now I can have malicious code running in fine-grained sandboxes where the only thing, where you can grab libraries that do what they do, and the only thing they're allowed to do is the stuff that you gave them the authority to do. I'm not expressing that quite as crisply as I usually do, but fundamentally, millions of developers on the planet know how to program JavaScript. 13.9 million was the last report I saw. And they can succeed at this because they can program it with modern frameworks, with modern programming techniques, modern tools, and so forth. So the goal is take the number one programming language on the planet, right? If you're going to enable millions of developers to program this stuff, you have to meet them where they're at. So take the most popular programming language on the planet, which we've been involved in the standards process of for 15 years. And yes, it runs on, Google V8, it runs in browsers, it runs in embedded systems JavaScript, it runs in any standard compliant JavaScript engine, because we've been working to get all the key elements into the JavaScript standard, and they are. And so enable them to write in standard JavaScript using the most popular development environments on the planet, VS Code, WebStorm, and so forth, and using the kind of techniques that they use to build all these applications that control literally trillions of dollars. So React, Vue, etc. These component models that allow you to rapidly plug together components that other people built. So you're not building each application from scratch as its own silo. And that's I think what crypto needs for the next generation of applications is you really got to empower all those other developers in the world to be able to build this stuff and not rely on a small priesthood of, I think the last estimate was 6,000 people that could actually program high-end DeFi contracts. I mean, as I said, there's more lawyers in Dallas than that, right? So right now, if you want a contract, you're better off going to a lawyer than you are going to a Solidity developer because there's more of them, they're closer, and they're probably cheaper.
Yeah, and I'm just going to get
I'm going to give my version of the explanation about why JavaScript smart contracts matter. Okay, which is basically Dean's explanation, but I'm going to pull out what I think are the important parts. Okay, there are a couple of things. One, the biggest thing about smart contract code is smart contract code is not reusable, because in Solidity, which is the dominant smart contract language, but this is the same thing is true in C-level, Solana's framework, access control and sort of business logic are totally woven together, right? So that means you cannot reuse really another piece of code that is on chain. And you also have to be very careful when you are reusing code from other pieces of software out there. So the standard thing to do when you are writing Solidity code is I look at the open source code out there. I copy paste that open source code into my smart contract. But the minute you copy paste it, now it's your baby. You got to maintain it. You got to security audit it. It saved you a bunch of hours. It saved you one piece of the process of writing the code, but it did not save you the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars downstream that you're going to spend security auditing it, running a bug bounty on top of it, all of these other things that exist. Yep. And it is inherent to any sort of system where access control and business logic are woven into the same system. And of all of the smart contract languages that I've seen, there are only two, Agoric system and Move, that provide any sort of meaningful separation between these two systems, where you can have a piece of business logic where the access control sits elsewhere in the system, like in other parts of the object. And you can be like, okay, this business logic, but it can only accessed by these kinds of users. You must have opened a CDP to access this business logic. If you have not opened a CDP, you cannot access this business logic. And so, but then the business logic of, how to refill your CDP can be compartmentalized and used in multiple places, right? This is if we do not have this, this is the way you 10x blockchains, right? This is because as long as we're in this mode of copy paste the software, redo the security audits, spend 3, 4, 5 months going back and forth with auditors, getting things fixed, which is what you do in the Cosmos SDK, what you do in Solidity, all of these, what you do in CosmWasm. It is going to be slow. It is slow and painful to build every new Web3 application. And that's really the potential of Agoric.
Yep. What he said.
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of JavaScript developers out there, right? That so far have a hard time getting into crypto, right? I think what's the number? Is it 10 million? Is it
13.9? Yeah. I mean, my last gig, before blockchain was a multi-billion-dollar payment instrument, and in fintech, right? And I had developers where they all got something going on, a side project or whatever. They all know JavaScript. They all met, they've all looked at blockchain, and this was a few years ago, and said, yeah, I'll come back when it's a little grown up because this is way too, unnecessarily hard and complicated. I'll go work in my buddy's hedge fund or keep working on this fintech thing. Right? And so to really open up the world to those developers that understand finance, that understand marketing, that understand development of how to build, fan bases for sports or music, what have you, to get those people building that stuff, we got to just make it something that they can build it without having to learn from scratch, because they've got plenty of other opportunity.
Yeah. By the way, I just got wrecked a little bit with sharing my screen, so that doesn't work, unfortunately, because I have a new laptop, and long story short, it doesn't work. But I'm going to link that later on. I think this is also graphics, maybe. Is it from the white paper or?
It's from presentations, I think.
Okay, yeah, but we can maybe share that later on for everybody who's interested. But yeah, let's get to July 7th, today. Where do we stand with Agoric? A lot of people are also very excited, for another big Cosmos chain coming to life that's potentially going to onboard a lot of new people also from within crypto, but also from outside. So where do we stand right now? What's the timeline also for the BLD token to go live? I think a lot of people are really, really interested in that. I see people saying when listing. So where do we stand today?
Okay, so first off, Agoric layer 0, the Cosmos layer, is live, has been live since last November, and people who have tokens have them in automatic contracts that have automatic unlocking. So the public sale, one of the options was tokens where they started unlocking July 1st. And so that means that tokens unlocked last Friday and started to be liquid. Now, liquid on chain only, because IBC isn't yet turned on. Right. So people can do private sales or private transactions or what have you, but they can't do a lot with it that they weren't able to do. But that's coming quickly, and that'll come long before other people's tokens unlock. The other thing that happened is that the community really wanted rewards to turn on. So there was a proposal to turn them on, not at the target levels that we expect for when the JavaScript stack and inter deploy, but starting to bring up the levels so that everyone with staked build has some free unlocked build to be able to participate in the growing market. Now, it's exciting to me, actually. All the best chains came out in a bear market, and part of that is because then you get to grow into liquidity areas and exchanges and so forth, not quite organically, but you get to grow. You don't have to treat it all as a crisis. There's time for it to grow sensibly and carefully, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we expect over the next couple of months, is increasing access over exchanges, and so forth. Now, we're sort of unique in that our token was minted out of the US. That puts various constraints on us, and that's fine. Our focus is building the stack of software to enable programmers to build the next generation of stuff, and it's the community out there that's growing the connectivity into liquidity. So there's several folks that are starting to that are agitating for the IBC connection, and actually made a proposal to get the IBC started so they can set up osmosis pools or crescent pools or whatever. And so we're excited about that, but it is the community that does that. So that'll happen naturally. We there's free tokens out there. It's a permissionless world. We couldn't stop it even if we wanted to. There are exchanges that come and ask us, how do we connect to this, and that are proceeding with integration, but no exchange is going to talk about that until they're out, until they're ready to deploy. So all these people asking when listing, not up to me. It's up to them. Partly, Cosmos integration is slightly harder than ERC20 integration, or at least they haven't quite done enough generalization to make it as easy as it should be. And I expect them to do so over the next few months, because clearly sort of the next wave of growth really looks like it comes out of the Cosmos ecosystem. But
are we looking at weeks, or are we more looking at months? What do you think?
I think it's going to come out on Thursday. Now the question is, Thursday of which week? So the answer is, not back to see above, not under my control. People are working on it. It's exciting, and I expect it to be soon, right? But soon for some value soon. So we'll let you know as soon. I'm excited for all these activities that people are happening, but my focus is on getting supporting people outside of Agoric that are building software on it, and supporting my team inside to finish the stuff that we're on the hook for. So
And the community is going to roast me if I don't ask that. But obviously, you know, we're spoiled with airdrops in the ecosystem. Is there any plans for that or anything like that?
No. Right.
No.
I mean, the answer is we might do that. There are no current plans for it. I mean, one of the things is we're not an application chain. And that makes what you're doing very different. It's not, hey, come use this application. We are, you know, we're, you know, our first thing, inter protocol, which we'll talk about, I presume, shortly, that's hugely important, very valuable. And my focus is enabling chains with a capital asset to make that capital asset powerful, right? You know, to be able to take Atom, to be able to take Osmo and unlock that by putting it in a vault and borrowing a stable token against it. That's huge value to me. You know, I mean, cypherpunks build code. I don't bribe people, I build code. Right. And so to me, unlocking the value they already have in their capital assets, that's an airdrop. You know, I mean, yeah, okay, it's technically different, but that's the value that is most important to me to add. Now we may, you know, I'm much more interested in then having people in a position to incentivize the right liquidity depth to enable that and so forth. But that's the first step. And then we've got tokens set aside to be able to reward people for building reusable components on the platform. And the first businesses launching once we've got permissionless deployment and all of that. So, you know, the current phase is, you know, the nascent growth. You know, there's, you know, 2 and 3 more phases, all of which will need their own incentives. So that's why, you know, it's too early for me to have planned airdrops or anything of that flavor. I mean, will we do rewards to incentivize people? Almost certainly. Will the foundation? Almost certainly, though that's also not in my control. But you know, and we're excited to you know, help people, incentivize them to be on the platform. But you know, our focus is really incentivizing builders to build, and that will create the economy that everyone wants to play in.
So I guess stay tuned, everybody. Yeah, so let's talk about Inter. I think previously it was called the Run protocol, which has been in the works way before the whole Terra UST collapse and all these kind of things. For those that are wondering, like, is that a direct response to this collapse? But it's not. It was in the works before that. So at what point did you think that it's a good idea to implement also a stablecoin economy inside or on top of Agoric? And maybe you can also explain a little bit how Agoric and Inter are kind of like interconnected to each other.
Yes. So, you know, when we designed Agoric, or rather when we finally put together, you know, we knew it was the technology for doing our model of component building, but how to position it, how people would understand it and integrate it into the overall crypto ecosystem was something that, you know, we kept iterating on. And one of the nice things about, you know, rapid development is we can pivot and iterate and focus well. So we realized that the goal was really this mantra of build fast, earn fast. And that's sort of the that covers the end of what Agoric is doing. Enable developers to rapidly build a new application they care about it and get it out there in a place so that customers could buy it and leverage it. That's what you need to do for a foundational, you know, for a platform in the mainstream ecosystem. And when JavaScript first came out, when Node first came out, it caught fire because developers could rapidly build stuff, and then they had a place they could deploy it to the internet, and boom, their customers could get it. They didn't need help from anyone. Yes, they deployed to some cloud provider, but it wasn't oh, I got to negotiate to get it onto the app store. It's just, you know, here I am. I've deployed. I get out to market. People get things out very quickly. We need the same thing in the blockchain space. The only place at the time we were doing this, the only place you could deploy contracts was Ethereum. Now, since then, you know, people are starting to go, Cosmos is a place where I can just deploy my zone, you know, but it's still, you know, you got to get validated. You got to do all this stuff. So it's not as easy as deploy me an application out in the cloud, right? And so when we thought about that, we knew we needed to build a place. And so people could, you know, it's JavaScript. They already know it. It's a framework like React, like Vue, so they can learn this framework because they've done that before. They can build new applications, and now they need to put it somewhere. But in order to have a place to go and deploy this, it's got to be a real economy. I've got to be able to price things and not have to, in each of my applications, worry about creating a new currency and then foreign exchange with 100 other currencies in order to deploy my tiny little business, right? That's just crazy, right? If I want to be able to roll out an easy new application to do stop loss on an AMM, which in JavaScript would be, get the price component. When the price crosses 50, sell my position, right? Ought to be 20 or 30 lines of JavaScript that millions of programmers could understand. If I then have to, oh, by the way, I can't actually deploy this unless I'm in a currency and negotiate with an exchange, that's never going to happen. You're never going to deploy this reusable, valuable component that's a tiny bit of JavaScript. So that's what we needed to enable. That means, what is in an economy? It's not the barter economy of Ethereum. There's a currency that people can price things in. Customers can compare multiple offerings because they're priced in the same currency. All those kinds of things. And so we knew we had to build that. We knew we had to build that. We knew we needed a currency that was sound. And so the CDP model, pioneered by MakerDAO, is clearly the number one answer for that. And when we looked at some of these other models that may have popped recently, that was clearly not the answer. We knew we needed to automate liquidation, right? We've got asynchronous contracts and all communicate with each other. We want to be able to use that, so we don't need an off-chain auction to do all of our liquidations. And so we knew that, making liquidations part of the thing that developers could enhance and extend was something that would give it legs into the future as the crypto ecosystem and the crypto economy of the world evolves. And so those were all things where in 2019, when we figured out what do we need to build in addition to just JavaScript, because we realized that was part of the overall picture of what we needed to build. And one of the ways in which that jives with the rest of Agoric, so IST, the stable token, has a clear life of its own, but it is also part of the it drives value to the build token, to the Agoric build token, right? Any of the fees associated with it, some of those come off as rewards to staked build holders in the future. So right now, staking rewards are just the typical mint new build tokens, new BLD tokens. And that's fine. It's a small amount of inflation reward. But once the economy gets going, what you want is fees that scale with the size of the economy so that the network value scales with the size of the economy. If you're proof of stake, it's critical that the network value scales with the size of the economy. Otherwise, if you have $1 billion economy on $1 million chain, someone can buy it out and take it over, right? And that's clearly not acceptable. And so this is all part and parcel of making sure it was both valuable, but also making sure that it was secure. And the primary driver to make sure that we knew how value accrued to stake build token was to make sure that it would grow with the size of the economy. And that's what it takes to make a place that can thrive, an economy that can thrive. And so a place where people can quickly deploy stuff and be successful.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit more about the whole design architecture of Inter. We have a couple of different concepts of stablecoins. Obviously, the centralized asset-backed ones that have real dollars, apparently at least, in bank accounts, right? Like Tether is claiming, and USDC probably more legit in that sense, also with more credible audits. Then you have the collateralized stablecoins like DAI that you already mentioned, in combination with Maker. And then we had crazy experiments like UST that was this mint and burn model. Under which category does Inter fall? Is it an algorithmic stablecoin? And also, would it be fair to say that Inter is to Agoric what DAI is to Maker?
So first, it is a fully collateralized stablecoin. Our goal is very much strong solvency. So it is not an algorithmic stablecoin. I'm pretty dubious of most algorithmic stablecoins. Partly because they have a flavor of everything works, until it doesn't over in this corner. But we'll never get there, I promise. And the key thing in the Byzantine environment of crypto is any bad corner, you will get there. Someone will find a valuable reason to force you there, and so you need to understand that. And Terra had clear bad areas that if you ever get there, it implodes, right? Where people could mint trillions of Luna and take over the network, and that's just not acceptable from a financial services design point of view. So very much the fully collateralized model. Now, the heart of it is indeed the CDP style model, pioneered by Maker. where you bring collateral. My analogy for people who have never seen this before is like home loans, right? I bring a house, it's got some value, it's worth, $200,000. I borrow $100,000 off of that as a home equity line of credit. And I can do that. Even though the house value goes up and down, it stays above the 100,000 that I borrowed. If the value of the house falls too far, then I either have to pay off my loan or, improve the house so it's worth more, or, they're going to sell the house, right? They're going to foreclose and sell the house, right? So, the nice thing is no one's living in your asset that's running on chain. So there's no moral hazard of kicking someone out of their house. But the basic model is one that 100 million people in this country are familiar with and do on an ongoing basis, probably more than that. We should find the number. Right? And so that model is something that people deeply understand. It is, the USD is a stable coin, that is CDP based, right? Based on the value of real estate is, and long-term mortgages. That's a huge basis for the value of USD. It works the same way. That model works. It's worked at the macro scale and large scale ecosystems. It works on blockchain. We can see with the downturns that indeed, all the stable tokens that were of that flavor, they were fine. Once you have a liquidation process so you can smoothly liquidate the assets that people have, MakerDAO, Cello, various others of these, they all work just fine. Even though there was an 80% market downturn. And so that's a model that we believe in. Now, that's the core of it. Additionally, we have, high, what I refer to as sort of reference stablecoins, anchor stablecoins, or, high quality stablecoins like USDC, where we're saying, okay, this is a digital representation of the off-chain asset that is the value you're kind of having parity to. Those being able to trade them directly. So I can bring in USDC, I can convert it directly to IST, and now the protocol owns the USDC, and I can go back and forth without it being a vault style architecture or an AMM style architecture. That's clearly also proven value. And that really enables arbitrage to happen much more efficiently to keep the value of IST at parity to $1. And so we also have that, the parity stability module. And one of the nice things about the overall architecture is we will be able to add other mechanisms in the future, or rather the IST community will be able to add other mechanisms in the future, like a delta neutral mechanism, right? Once there's a perpetual options market that people have deployed successfully and use, and that has depth to it, being able to add the ability to have IST minted using perpetual options and this delta neutral thing, will work just fine as a way to extend the ability to mint IST and to reduce the required collateralization ratios while still having all the solvency that we really want, all the robustness we really want out of a stable token. And so that extensibility, that safe extensibility, is one of the big values that I think IST will have going forward. Now, originally, IST was very focused on, it's the grease for the wheels of commerce on the Agoric ecosystem, right? And then in November, we were already working, Zucky was already going, this stable token, the world really, Cosmos Interchain really needs this. You should really, it's not just what you need on the step to deploying a real system. You should really do this for real. It's a big deal. We get to, Cosmoverse. You may be familiar with Cosmoverse, Cryptocito. It was this event in November.
I heard about it. Okay. I heard about it.
And I was describing this.
Literally back in the Cosmoverse hotel.
There we go.
That looked familiar, yeah. And so I was describing this, and Sunny, of Osmosis, is like, oh my God, we need an atom-backed stable token. Oh my God, yes, when can I have it? Right? It's like, okay, so it's like, oh, okay, it really does solve a problem that people really have out there. This is awesome. So
I wasn't just lying to you.
But it's one thing when you're advisors and architects and you go, yeah, okay, that all makes sense. And it's another thing when a customer comes in and says, when can I have it? Right. And so these hit different parts of the brain. Right. So yeah, no, I didn't think you were lying. And so that got, that was not a pivot because we were already in the process of deploy the stable token first to lay out the groundwork for our economy, then enable permissioned deployment of additional contracts, and then go to permissionless. So we were already on that path. But the fact that the thing that we were building in order to enable the economy on our platform would enable the interchain economy. I mean, crypto summer happened, DeFi summer happened because stablecoins provided the grease for DeFi to grow. Right. This is, it's a mechanism, and blockchain for a long time was I can swap X for Y. So it's kind of a barter economy. You're paying with volatile assets for gas. So it's like you're paying your rent with Apple shares. You can do it. But we got off of barter economy a long time ago because a currency economy works better. And so bringing a currency to ETH is what enabled DeFi Summer. Bringing a good currency to Cosmos will have the same enabling effect for interchain commerce in the Cosmos ecosystem.
Wow. Well, first off, I'm really, really excited to hear that this idea came together at Cosmoverse. I didn't know that. That's really, really cool. And I think this year at Cosmoverse, you might have a big announcement, right? A big release. I heard something.
That's the target. Yeah, we're targeting Q3. Engineering is engineering, and security auditors come back and say, "Well, you have to do this other thing." Okay, fine. Yeah. Right. So our goal is to be robust. Because again, this is the first stage for a much longer platform. But yeah, I'm excited about Cosmoverse.
Nice. Yeah, we can talk about this later as well. But let's get back a bit to the CDP model, and also I think Inter is applying the vault style architecture.
Yeah.
So what type of assets will be used as collateral in Inter? And yeah, maybe you can talk us through also how the process is going to be to add more assets.
Right. And I also see a good question in the chat here. So CDP is vaults, right? I mean, that's the model of I bring a crypto asset. So, but we're sort of, over collateralized and IBC native model. So I bring assets over IBC, Atom over IBC, lock it up in a vault, in a unique vault that holds your atoms. So there's still your atoms locked up. It's not, it's not a lending platform where they're all commingled in a pool and then loaned to other people. They're just locked up for your purposes. You mint IST against that with, so if I bring $200 worth of atoms, I mint $100 worth of IST. I can then take that over IBC, over to JUNO or Osmosis or Evmos or wherever it is that I want to spend some stable token to buy or participate in some DeFi over on those other platforms. The set of collateral that you can bring that way. Oh, and then if the value of Atom were to fall, which of course never I can't say that. Clearly, these are volatile assets. That's sort of the point. If it falls below a threshold, then if you don't keep it above that threshold by topping it up, then the system will automatically liquidate your position in order to pay off the debt and give you whatever atoms are left. Right. So it sells enough atoms to cover your debt. So now it's square. The protocol, your loan is paid off and you're good. And here's the remaining third of your house that I did not sell. Right. And it'll do that automatically.
One question to that. Let me hook in here, because I think this is a very big pain point that the community has right now. When they hear stablecoin asset backed by Atom, they immediately think, please no, because they think like if there was a bank run or Atom in value a lot, it would kill Atom, and it would launch this death spiral. So
So the critical death spiral that you saw in UST was the fact that getting out of IST could mint brand new Luna. Yeah. And it would mint brand new Luna, whatever price Luna was at. So that means the farther it fell, the more Luna the same amount of IST of UST would mint. And it literally got to the point where people would liquidate enough IST to mint 1 trillion Luna. The Agoric platform and Inter protocol has no authority to mint Atom, right? And there's no, so that risk is simply non-existent. I mean, that's just, wait, you want to do that? That's crazy talk, right? I mean, that was just always a bad idea. And it's simply not possible in this kind of architecture. So that means, this multiplicative exponential death spiral is just not a possibility, right? It's not it's over here and it could happen. No, it just can't happen architecturally, right? So the scenario of some small, one of the nice things about being backed by multiple collateral types out over the Cosmos ecosystem, instead of, well, in order to use this stablecoin, you must buy into our particular staking token and rely on it, and it will implode, and then you're all screwed, right? No, is that it's not going to be 80% of Atom that's all backing IST. It's going to be, some small percentage of everyone's position, so they can go and play in whatever they're doing and leverage, right? But we're not anticipating it being 20% of Atom that's locked up this way. But instead, 5% of them, 5% of another token, 5% of another token, and so the pressure on price for liquidations for IST, we have people that are working on modeling that, but that's not a substantial contributor to the downward price of the token. It will have local downward price since we're automatically liquidating on our local AMM, and that will push that down, and then arbitrateurs will bring it back up in line with Osmosis or Crescent or whatever's JUNO swap or whatever. But that's just a local, that's local AMM mechanism, which is exactly push it down, and then traders can bring it back up based on what they expect the price to be, and they get a reward as a result of helping to correct the prices and provide stability to the token. So, or to IST. So the risk of that level of downward spiral, it architecturally doesn't exist.
I had a very interesting live stream yesterday with the TorChain team. They're obviously building something completely different with their liquidity protocol and all these kind of things, but they have a very efficient way, apparently, and I have to dig into all of that, but how the protocol accrues a reserve by increased usage of the platform, right? Which they use in their scenario for impermanent loss protection, for example. Is there also something like that? Maybe that, the protocol itself generates revenue that could act as a reserve.
Yeah. So the key thing is when you borrow IST or mint IST against your collateral, there's a fee, right? When you trade and swap in the local AMM, like Sushi Swap, 5 basis points goes into the fee pool, right? When you take USDC and trade it for IST, it's 1 basis point or half a basis point scraped off the top. It's a very small fee, but that adds up in aggregate and scales with the size of the economy. And so that fee is partly goes into the reserve. So there is a reserve that we will seed initially, and that when new collateral types come in, they will have to contribute to provide a reserve to cover the volatility of their collateral type. And then certain amounts of those fees go into the reserve. Some of those fees go into the reward for the build, for staked build, which is securing and operating all of this infrastructure. And so that those fees are exactly the economic mechanic that drives the Agoric platform and the IST platform. Is it grows the reserve, it pays for, like one of the ways that we manage risk is that Gauntlet, Tarun Chitra and company, they will be on an ongoing basis running market simulations, analyzing current liquidity, trading volumes, all that kind of thing, in order to make sure that the economic parameters are sound for having the right trade-off of collateralization and liquidity and solvency. And they'll be providing those as recommendations into the platform to make sure that the economic parameters of IST are extremely high quality, to make sure that this, as Zucky has said, various other places, that make sure we meet the bar of sound risk management that MakerDAO sets for DAI. That's a critical bar, and we all want to have a currency with, real economic solidity behind it that we can all rely on. And that's very much what we're targeting.
Yeah, and I think also the goal is here really to, like I said earlier, to have a variety of IBC assets backing that stablecoin. I think there's also individual over collateralization ratios that will be determined, I guess, by the community, depending on the volatility, on the nature of the asset that is backing it. But the long play, like I said earlier, and also Saki, this IST token could become this IBC fee token, I guess, or IBC currency of the whole ecosystem, or maybe you can walk us through some of the use cases, some of the long-term goals and visions for IST.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so well, why are we talking about the short-term goals and visions, right? We have been talking about, it should not be. So two things. One is USDC is going to come to Cosmos. 100% sure of that. It's going to come to Cosmos. It's going to come to Cosmos. DYDX need it. Osmosis. USDC is not a competitor really to IST in my mind. These kind of stable coins work best, like a maker style stable coin works best when you have a US dollar pegged asset that becomes your collateral in a bear market, and a volatile asset that becomes your collateral in a bull market. That's just how these things work. So that's one thing. Second thing. But what people are going to want to do is to take out debt against their Atom, eventually their liquid staked Atom, and they're going to want to put it to work inside of the Cosmos ecosystem. And right now there isn't really a way of doing that. And so what you're going to be able to do is, for every new DeFi thing, you take the wealth that not only has accumulated in Atom, but we're solving the Atom value accrual problem, right? We're solving between interchain security, liquid staking, other bits and pieces. We have all of these pieces that are in motion to accrue value to Atom. So Atom economy grows, right? But now IST turns the Atom growth, the value accrual of Atom, into expansion of the DeFi economy across IBC, right? Because you take your Atoms, you borrow against them. Now I can go deploy those Atoms, the IST in lending markets. I can deploy the IST in liquidity pools. I can sort of drive the wider economy. And this is why it was so beneficial to Ethereum that Maker came out in 2016, because as the rest of DeFi took off, people could use their appreciation of their ETH to drive DeFi in Ethereum, and we've never had that in Cosmos before. And so having Agoric coincide with all of these Atom value accrual mechanisms that we're putting together, we bring these two things together. Now the DeFi ecosystem across IBC has this rocket engine of growth, where every new thing that you build in DeFi has an ample source of liquidity by supporting IST. And and then the entire world just is hosted on Cosmos zones, and it's great.
That's right.
Every day I'm learning about a new project that is learning about Cosmos. Cosmos it's coming together.
The whole goal has always been to move, the entire global economy onto Cosmos zones, as one should.
Yeah. And you just said USDC is coming to Cosmos. Is that
indeed? Not a secret.
Not a secret. Okay. All right.
Antonio keeps tweeting about it, so I'm allowed to say that.
There we go.
I can't give everyone, the blow for blow. Some things are confidential, but we're gonna find a way.
Yeah, so we got so much stuff there, but
and we're happy about that too. I mean, we worked hard to help start some of that process and to figure out how it would fit in Cosmos, over a year ago. But other people are carrying the ball now. But having a reference stable token to help simplify and tighten the arb loop makes any stable coin that wants to have parity with the dollar, that's just a lot easier. Now, from my perspective, it's critical.
I gotta go.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Dean, if you want to keep going, keep going.
Up to Cryptocito, I'm happy.
Yeah, no, I got time. But Zaki, I dropped a message on Telegram previously. If you can check that message and
okay,
will be cool.
Yeah. We have a lot of Cosmos-verse stuff to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Zaki and I will be back. So, but I'll stay on for a few more minutes, Crypto.
I don't know what you guys are going to build this time at Cosmos, but maybe something big. But I had a question before I forget that about, obviously the success of UST and this rapid explosive growth of UST adoption was, I guess, primarily because of Anchor, right? Because there were these crazy yields, like deposit UST, you get 20% on UST in UST, which was a no-brainer, right? No risk, no volatility, just 20% on the dollar.
No risk.
So that obviously,
if you ever hear no risk, you know there's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but well, it worked until it didn't. Until, as you said earlier,
right.
But I think at the peak there were like $17 billion or something like in Anchor, which was like 80% of or 90% of all USTs.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be in your dream scenario the main demand driver for IST? Would it be integrations across all chains as a native fee token, or what do you think? Why would people buy IST or demand IST?
So I was just talking with Say Network yesterday, and their point is that the number one driver of stable tokens is derivatives markets, because they settle in it, right? So I think that the primary drivers end up being, the key DeFi metrics, going long, but not going on our token. It's going long on your token, right? Being able to go long on Atom, go long on Osmo, go long on whichever collateral types are supported. And the reason I stayed on was to make sure to answer your question about how do collateral types get added. The settlement currency for interesting complex DeFi. So like perp option, or, like perps and stuff like that, having a reference thing that they can settle into or be priced in, priced in terms of, that's critical. And that you want a stable token for, and then spending. So being a fee token, that's great. From my perspective, fees need to be really small compared to actually doing business, right? My rent is not most of what I spend business on, most of what we spend our money on for a business. If you're doing that, then, you might want to think about how your business works. And so fee tokens, gas tokens, that's important, but that's just a cost of doing business. And the question is, how are you spending your money to create new value, not keep the doors open? And so, yes, fee tokens will be critical. Every contract will have it. And if other chains want to use IST as their fee token, that's awesome and wonderful. And I think that will work great, because it's just way better than having a volatile asset as your fee token. Because, then you can do long-term contracts for pricing, because the price is going to be the same next month as it is this month. Unlike if it's Atom or ETH or anything like that. But as I say, the critical demand drivers are going to be usage and DeFi. Now, I really want it to not be artificial usage in DeFi. If everyone talks about the price of the last trade times the number of tokens you have outstanding, as if that's the value. But if the way you got there was like this, then your actual value that people paid into that curve is very, very small. If you got there more like this, the value that is actually based on your token at its peak is a much, much more robust economy underneath. And that means, when you have a really thin, narrow peak, it falls just as fast. So organic growth and use by protocols to be able, to actually get their business done, that's the foundation of long-term utility, robustness, and value. We'll have plenty of utility peaks, but the main thing is it'll go up and that'll go down. Currencies need to work just fine in either kind of market. And I believe the architecture we have is designed for that. And so, while I want the market to grow, and there will be peaks and valleys of that, and that's fine. IST is designed for both.
So you're saying no 20% on my IST?
No. Well, not from us. I mean, someone else out there can do whatever they want, but I have no plans to do that. Right? For the same reason that the EU doesn't do that for Euro. I mean, it's just like, no, it is valuable to you to have grease for the wheels of commerce. You want to be in an economy where that happens, because it'll be a richer, more robust economy. So I don't need to pay you to take my money.
Yeah, and another kind of concern from some people is that, let's say IST takes off, it's backed by this variety of IBC assets, has a high market cap, but then there's some issue on Agoric, right? Like how I guess the question is, how dependent is Inter on Agoric, and what would happen to it if there was a flaw or bug or an exploit on Agoric itself?
Right. So that's a great question. And the answer is well, okay. So, same issue of, if there's a bug in ETH, what happens to Maker, right? So the Agoric execution infrastructure is not reliant on details of IST, right? The Agoric model is, the Agoric goal is, build fast, earn fast. I can rapidly build and deploy applications in a stable economy. So it wants a token that has a relatively stable value with safe composable building of smart contracts. That's what Agoric requires. Doesn't have to be pegged to $1. It doesn't have to be perfectly stable, but it's got to be relatively low volatility. That's what Agoric requires. And so there are many details of IST and many mechanisms designed to make it easy for the IST community to evolve the IST mechanisms, recovery, debug it, and so forth. But, they will benefit from all the mechanisms of building and executing robustly in the, on the Agoric platform, which we're doing not just for IST, but for third parties running arbitrary code and coexisting well with each other. Now, because of IBC, right, the first mechanism is, let's say Agoric was down for, I can't imagine, having the crazy downtimes of Solana, but let's say that it was down for a day. The IST that's pooled on other chains, it still works, right? It was transferred over IBC to those other chains, and so you can buy and sell it in osmosis and trade it in perps and whatever it is, and there's some impact of on the redemption process, but as long as there's strong confidence that the platform will come back, that's not a problem. There's no impact on the use and trading of IST on exchanges and other platforms. And so, it's all open source, it's all recoverable. If we went down, if that contract went down, one can restore it, and we have many mechanisms for upgrade and robustness. If the entire chain went down, which is pretty implausible to me, given that all of us have had decades of building large-scale industrial strength systems. Then one could bring up a replacement that honored the outstanding debts and preserved everyone's capital and move forward from there. And so it's so the recovery and robustness mechanisms I would expect are top notch from that perspective. The economic risks, the system gets, currently right now it's undergoing economic stress tests by third-party economists running liquidation scenarios and trading scenarios and that sort of thing. It'll be getting analyzed on an ongoing basis by Gauntlet, who's third-party experts. And I expect, lots of people out there to dig into these contracts because, there are a few hundred lines of JavaScript, right? They're not that hard to understand. And so, in terms of in terms of an infrastructure, every infrastructure, you've got some counterparty risk, but we do everything we can to make that as solid as possible and as recoverable from us as possible. And in the future, it might make sense to have a secondary minting source so that if Agoric went down, the accounts could be taken over and all that. That's fine. The goal here is a token that the interchain can rely on.
Yeah, I want to hear more about the minting and redemption model in a second, but just about the security and stuff like that. Would there potentially be any benefit for the Agoric chain once interchain security version 3 is out, which I think will allow for the Cosmos Hub to also rent out the security and merge security models with other chains that have their own existing validator set? Would it be something that would also potentially make Agoric more secure and make it more, robust against potential attacks or anything?
Well, so at this point, Agoric has top-notch validators with deep security, and so we're doing pretty well. Yeah. Stakecito is one of them. Yep. I staked with Stakecito. Did you? Yeah. But I also staked with, Chorus Line, Figment.
Of course. You're decentralized.
Yes. Very, very much decentralized. And the OPCO is very decentralized and staked across 60 different validators or more. And the foundation is doing its own thing and staking with a different policy. And so very much a goal of strong decentralization. So I'm interested in mechanisms that expand that security. I don't expect we would directly make use of the security from the hub, simply because our overall model has staking rewards that are coming from the IST model. And, frankly, that's what BLD purchasers bought into. And so, so it's up to the community. I won't, we won't be a decider in that. It'll be the community that decides that. But, the early folks getting into Build did so because they knew that we were going for this much larger economy model. So they've been there since the beginning. Having a way of bringing other stakers in from other systems to support that as well. I'm not against it, but it doesn't at this point look critical. Now, I'm really excited about that technology, but because going back to that asynchronous model, it will allow us to scale horizontally, where I can have an Agoric 2 that is getting staking from all the same staking BLD that people have on Agoric 1, right? And, some contracts are on one, some are on the other, but it looks like a single uniform fabric of asynchronous messaging with just a different with just different latency between these different contracts. I think of each blockchain as sort of a city, and, we're building an economy that's in more than one city. So, yes, going next door to buy stuff is faster, lower latency, but I get a lot of things shipped from other cities, and that works just fine. And so you end up with some things that are working across these very related and easily migratable chains, right? People can move from one city to another, and some things are all local. And that's how economies work, is you have this rich fabric of differentiated behavior and performance and purpose aggregating in these different areas. And so decentralized staking and interchain security supports that model of growth that I expect to see over the next decade really, really well.
Yeah, and just for the records, I don't hold any BLD token at the moment. Dean didn't sign me up for that seed round. No, but yeah, I'm really excited for it to come out. And
actually, you do, because staking rewards are turned on and you get a commission.
There we go. Let's talk about the minting and burning. Maybe you can explain that. There was also a question earlier. Let me find that one.
I don't do minting and burning.
Oh yeah, here about how do BLD stakers how are BSD stakers able to mint IST?
Okay. So the first and most important thing, and this also answers someone's question about what happens if USDC depegs, or maybe more importantly, what happens if the dollar depegs. But for each of the various sources of IST, there are debt limits. So, Atom has a certain volatility, risk profile, and et cetera. It has a certain amount of additional capital put behind to provide aggregate risk reduction in a reserve to cover shortfalls. And so how much over collateralization you need in each vault will be specific to Atom, because it's covering, what happens if the price falls. Well, if price falls but doesn't fall below 100, your vault was covered. If it falls below 100%, so that I had $200, I borrowed $100, it now fell, so I can only sell it for 90. Then the remaining 10 has to come out of the reserve, and so it'll come out of the reserve, that was dedicated initially for Atom, and then out of a general reserve, right? And so for each of these collateral types, and this is one of the elements in any new collateral type, the debt limit, how much people can mint total against some new token from some new chain that everyone was really excited about and got approved as a new collateral type, that'll be determined by an economic committee of experts informed by the modeling that folks like Gauntlet do, in order to protect the overall solvency of IST. And so USDC is in the same bucket. It's got a debt limit of how much we're willing to have IST depend on the redemption of USDC or any other reference currency, anchor currency that the community decides to approve. And the same is true of any additional mechanism. And so being able to mint IST against Build has a similar debt limit in that mechanism. So what I don't want from an Agoric point of view is I don't want BLD to be a collateral type in the vault system, because liquidation, because it impairs network security. Build's job is to secure the chain and participate in governance and sort of those key functions. and to be a basis for getting some IST to participate in the economy, but it is the foundation of the economy, not a token currency in the economy. And so instead, we have a separate mechanism called Build Boost, BLD Boost, so that you can mint a small amount of IST against your build. So it's not that you can mint, with a collateralization ratio of 150% or whatever. This doesn't rely on price. It's okay for every 10 build, I can mint 1 IST. There's some number like that, again, determined by the economic committee and managed and validated by third parties and not controlled by Agoric and by any stretch of the imagination. But that's intended to be a very small fraction and have a debt limit that's reasonable. So what that means is everyone with stake build will be able to participate in IST. They'll be able to get enough IST to pay for gas fees or any of that kind of thing. It will provide some amount of liquidity in the when if liquidations are happening because various other tokens are falling. But I do not expect that to be a substantial fraction of the sorts of IST in the system, and so it doesn't put it doesn't add substantial risk there. Now, effectively, what's happening is you're building, you're minting IST not against the build itself, because that doesn't get liquidated, because that would impair network security, and that's one of the main requirements. You don't want, I'm going to liquidate your stake token, so suddenly we don't have any more network security when the token value goes down. No, instead, that's basically minting IST against the future rewards of your staked build. Mm-hmm. And so the amount of that will depend on the reward rate that the overall economy is driving to IST. So that and what'll happen is your IST rewards will automatically pay off your loan first before you can get to withdraw them. And so it provides a nice tight coupling, but it doesn't put, but it supports IST solvency. It doesn't put it at risk.
And I guess initially the primary token to back IST is going to be Atom, but there
up
will
to the
be
community. But I expect so.
Yeah. So that's where I want to get to. So up to the community. What if the community wants Huawei to back IST? How would that work? How would the collateralization ratio be determined, and how does that process go?
Right. So there's a bit of separation of concerns that we make sure of, right? Separation of duties. So the set of collateral. So someone would make a governance proposal to the build DAO through Commonwealth or whatever, to say, here's something that we think should be a collateral, here's why we think it's good, and so forth. So there are economists that are working on the details of this process, and that'll be published and described on the way out to release. And there are various collateral folks that have expressed interest in being a collateral for IST, and we're very excited about many of the the mainstay tokens being able to be collateral. But it will require risk analysis to assess what is the volatility of this token over time, what's the backing, how much collateral do we need for it, all those kinds of things. And then a proposal is made, and the builder DAO, the staked build holders, will decide, do I want that as collateral or not? And and some of the opinion that will go in is from the economic committee that will look at this and go, here's some issues. The governance of that thing is not stable. So, so if the following things change, then, then that puts it at risk. Here's why, or whatever it is, or, yep, this looks good. This is something, it's got a long history. It's now integrated in, we'd like to use it, right? ZEC is not in Cosmos yet, but it's coming. It's got a long history of value. It has a range. We know its volatility. Great. That might make a fine collateral. But same with some brand new, chain launches that people have anticipated, that too would be a good collateral, but would have a higher liquidation threshold and a higher required over collateralization ratio because of its inherent risk until it establishes a history. And again, Gauntlet every week would be looking at, has the history changed such that we can lower the collateralization ratios? Okay. And then the checks and balances on that is great. People have voted this in because everyone got excited about it. And, oh gosh, it's going to be the next big thing and blah, blah, blah. And then the economists are looking at that, or the experts at currency board kind of stuff are looking at that and going, there's a problem here with this because blah, or, ETH is great, but, there's been this compromise on a bridge. So, oh my gosh, we need to turn down the knob. the economic committee controls the debt limit. So, you know, it has to be approved by the world. The economic committee doesn't get to say, here's a new collateral type. It's, you know, staked build holders. It's all y'all, right? And then the economic committee says, okay, we've got this analysis. It says all the parameters look right. For that, the debt limit is here. Here, you know, you can mint, you know, up to $5 million of IST on that new token, you know, and at that, you know, at a point where there's $200 million of IST in the world, it gets $5 million. That lets you get started. That lets them, you know, lets you take new collateral type, whatever it is, and unlock some of its capital value and participate in DeFi, and that number will grow over time.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited. And right now, like we said earlier, well, we don't know when inflation token is going to go live, but the mainnet is already there.
Inflation has gone live. Inflation is live. So token rewards are happening.
Oh, it's already happening.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. People are staked. A lot of people are staked. There are already token rewards. It's you know, it's smaller than the long term what I expect. It's at 5%. But you know, right now that's non-trivial as people are slowly increasing the amount of staking. It's just not listed yet. Right. So that you know, I'm excited when people, you know, get their act together to do the listing.
Yeah. But I also saw a question whether there will be a sort of test environment for us to test out Inter and make sure that this all works out. Because I think still it's a very sensitive topic, everything around.
Absolutely. Okay. So there have been test environments for Inter since last summer, where every round of update and improvement, we do another round. So we did a final release preview end of May, and that's the version that was handed off for third-party security auditors and for economic stress tests. So we actually have, I don't know, 3 test nets running right now, and we're about to spin up a 4th. DevNet, you know, you can go to devnet.agoric.com or look under, you know, follow from agoric.com and follow the developer path, and you can get to DevNet, where that has the full JavaScript stack and IST and the ability to deploy your own contracts in JavaScript and do various things. And then there's another network that is what, and I think it's currently, you know, there's some, you know, it's a month old or something, and we found some perf issues that we have since fixed on our testnet that the economists are using to do economic stress tests. So they're doing liquidity modeling, you know, and that sort of thing. You know, Gauntlet and P2P. You know, Gauntlet is integrating their analysis services. I think, you know, Simply Staking is building out the Oracle network that will be part, you know, that'll be part of this. P2P Validator is starting to work on data indexing service, so it'll be easy to do aggregate analysis and indexing. So there are test nets now. You can run this stuff now. The apps are available now. I mean, they're under continual development and iterating. And so, you know, they may or may not, you know, be up every single minute of every single day. But you know, all the software is open source. You can also grab it, build it locally, and run it locally, build your own apps locally. I mean, you know, people can really get started on building for the future of deploying JavaScript on Agoric, or, you know, we're like right now, we're working with a couple of chains to deploy a testnet just for them to be able to get IST into their testnets to be able to start integrating with a future that has IST on it. So yeah, there are testnets. Come join it.
Come join, yeah. We're approaching rapidly the 1.5 hour mark, actually.
Yeah, well, I'll have to go at the end.
Yeah, but this was really cool. I just asked Santi also to share some of the links so that people can take action and further read more about everything that you do. As he's hopefully sending this to me, what are your final words? What is coming for the next few months? What is keeping you extremely busy right now? What are you really excited about?
Well, okay. So Ags, you know, mainnet 0 is up where the token is live and people are starting to get it unlocked. This is a beautiful period to start getting out the liquidity so that we're, you know, laying the groundwork for when there is a resurgence of DeFi on Cosmos and, you know, all of these things that are launching on Cosmos start to flourish. IST and BLD are well integrated into that world. But all of our attention is really on, you know, these test nets and finishing out the foundation so that recovery, restart, failover, all those kinds of things are as robust as we can do for a mainnet 1 launch. The target for mainnet 1 is Q3. And so, hopefully that's, done and in the bag well before Cosmoverse, but it might be just me at Cosmoverse and all the, and all the dev team is back at home, finishing releases to get it out there. But we're within epsilon of that. So I'm very excited about, the state of the software, the feedback we've been getting from the security reviewers, and, as we start to see the light at the end of the tunnel for this work that we've been putting together for literally 4 years now. I'm just really excited to see that come to market and enable all this new stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm just dropping the Inter website, which is where you can also find the white paper, as well as the Agoric website here in the chat box, so people can check these things out. Also follow you guys on Twitter. I see more and more hype, more and more people getting interested and excited about the full launch. But yeah, this was really cool. I'll latest see you in Medellin, I guess. And yeah, this was really cool. Thanks for coming on, sharing also this energy, this positive vibe I love about you. And yeah, thanks also everybody in the chat for your questions. I think this was really, really insightful. We learned a lot. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great. And I look forward to seeing you again, ideally before Cosmoverse.
Let's see. Are you planning to come to Paris?
I am not.
Okay.
I am not. I am planning to be working on code and finishing stuff so we can show it off at Cosmoverse. That's what I want.
Yeah, and working on that airdrop, right?
Oh, sure. Sure.
All right. Cool, man. Thanks.